Good morning or good afternoon. Today we'll be recording a video on 609. This is for highly accelerated math. It might also be like 610 or 611 for regular 6th grade math. So Monday it says, go ahead and write your last name, comma, first name, the date, and your class color. Last name, comma, first name, the date, and your class color. All right, so number 1 says multiply. Write your answer as a fraction or as a whole or a mixed number. So when you multiply fractions, you multiply straight across. But when you have a mixed number like this, make it into an improper fraction. So I remind you, you multiply the whole number by the denominator, which is 5 times 2, and that's 10. 10 plus 1 is 11, so that's 11 over 2 times 1 over 4. And when you're multiplying fractions, you just do it straight across. It's probably the easiest thing when it comes to fractions. 11 times 1 over 2 times 4. 11 times 1 is 11. 2 times 4 is 8. And it says, write your answer as a fraction or as a mixed, or as a whole or mixed number. So let's go ahead and write it as a mixed number. This right here, make sure you write it, is an improper fraction. I know you already know this, but for those of you who might have forgotten it, that's an improper fraction. And we want a mixed number. So we divide the numerator. This is 11 divided by 8. 11 divided by 8. You do the same procedure when you're trying to convert it into a decimal. The numerator divided by the denominator. 11 divided by 8. 8 goes into 11 just one time. 11 minus 8 is 3. So then you put this remainder on top of your divisor, which is 8. Or your dividend. So that's 1 and 3/8. So the answer is 1 and 3/8. That's written as a mixed number. All right, number 2 says, Melania walked her dog 2 1/5 miles. Kathy walked her dog 1 3/4 times as far as Melania did. How many more miles did Kathy walk her dog? I want to reassure you guys that the questions I put on this Quizzette are actually copies of the more difficult quiz that you're going to see. So the hardest questions are on this Quizzette. The quiz that you eventually get is way easier than this. So this question is going to seem a little tough, but you're just going to see it's multiplication of fractions and subtraction of fractions. So Melania walked her dog 2 1/5 miles. So we can start there. 2 1/5 miles. Kathy walked her dog 1 3/4 times as far as Melania did. So times in math means multiplication. So first, we're going to find how many miles Kathy walked her dog. Because right now we just have Melania, which is 2 1/5 miles. And we're trying to see how many miles Kathy walked her dog. So we're going to multiply 2 1/4 times 1 3/4. So just convert those into improper fractions. 2 times 5 plus 1 is 11/5. And the next one is 1 times 4 plus 3, which is 7 over 4. Now we're multiplying straight across. 11 times 7 over 5 times 4. And that's 77 over 20. Keep it that way for now. Keep it as an improper fraction. So we have 77 over 20. That's how many miles Kathy walked her dog. Now let's read the second part. How many more miles did Kathy walk her dog? So how many more miles did Kathy walk her dog in comparison to Melania? So I'm going to write it in a different color because this is the second part of this question. Melania walked her dog 2 1/5 miles. And then we know that Kathy walked her dog 77 over 20. So we have an improper fraction as our second fraction. So why don't we make the first mixed number into an improper fraction? We have 2 times 5, which is 10. Plus 1 is 11. So we have 11/5 minus 77/20. Now we have to have the same common denominator, and the lowest common multiple of 5 and 20 is 20. So I'm going to manipulate this fraction right here to have a 20 on the bottom. So I'm going to multiply that by 4 over 4. 4 times 11 is 44. 4 times 5 is 20. Okay, so this is going to end up being negative, but technically the 77 over 20 should be first. So it should be written like this, 77 over 20 minus 44 over 20. You can't do this in math, but I made the mistake of putting the bigger fraction second. The bigger fraction should have been first. So 77 minus 44 is 33 over 20. And now I'm going to turn that into a mixed fraction. 20 goes into 33 one time. There's going to be 13 left over, and the denominator is 20. So the final answer is Kathy walked her dog 1/13/20 mile more than Melania. So let's write that. Kathy walked her dog 1/13/20 more than Melania. Okay, so you should have 3 boxes. The first improper fraction, the solution, and then the sentence with the solution inside. Number 3, it says, in the number line shown below, which letter point represents 1/7/8 divided by 1/2? So we have to solve this first. So we have 1/7/8 divided by 1/2. And I'm going to show you 2 ways to solve this. So I'm going to split this up. This is version 1, and this is version 2. Let's do version 1. Version 1 is a traditional method. So we would turn our first number into an improper fraction. 1 times 8 is 8. 8 plus 7 is 15. So we have 15/8 divided by 1/2. So what we would do is we would keep the first fraction as is. We would switch the division into multiplication and then flip this fraction into 2 over 1. 15 times 2 is 30. 8 times 1 is 8. So that would be our answer, but then we want to turn it into a mixed fraction. A mixed fraction would be, let me see, 8 goes into 30, 8, 16, 24, 3 times. 24 is 6 away from 30. So it'd be 6/8. Now we could reduce that to 3. Let me see, 3/4. So that would be our final answer. Now version 2 is the ear method. You can write ear method. It only works when dividing fractions. So this only works when you're dividing fractions. So we have 1/7/8 divided by 1/2. Turn 1/7/8 into an improper fraction. So that's 15/8 divided by 1/2. And then we're going to write it as is, 15/8 divided by 1/2. And now we connect the outside numbers, and that's the top of the new fraction. 15 times 2 is 30. 8 times 1 is 8, and that goes on the bottom, which is what we got originally. And then we also know we reduced it. It's going to be the same thing, so we can just put 3 3/4. So we have version 1, version 2. Okay, so now let's see which point represents 3 3/4. So A is at the origin, which is 0. So it can't be A because it's at 0. B is a little less than 1. C is 1 point, maybe 3. So D is the closest one, 3 3/4. So D is the correct answer. So you could say D, or point D, represents 1/7/8 divided by 1/2. Point D. I had to put quotes because it all looks like one word there. So point D represents 1/7/8 divided by 1/2. Good luck on this Quizzette, and remember that if you can do this Quizzette, you will most likely get an A+ on the quiz, if not just a regular A, because the Quizzette is like 3 times harder or 4 times harder than the actual quiz that you're going to get later. So don't stress about it.